Good morning. My name is Matt Jasmine, hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk for the hearing. Public Works staff Chris Buck will be presenting the hearing item today, and we have Crystal Liang and Ten Ki Wong doing interpretation into Cantonese. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual meeting, there is no sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is held to consider one item. Hearing order 211192. To consider appeals from property owners for the planting of new street trees adjacent to their property at the addresses that I'll recite in a moment. The department may plant new climate-appropriate trees in the sidewalk or public right-of-way. When the department determines to plant a new street tree, the department will undertake maintenance responsibilities for the new street tree, including routine care and actions necessary to promote the life, growth, health, and beauty of the tree. The following locations are the subject of this hearing: 546 Madrid, 551, 559, 550, 563 Edinburgh, 1434 15th Street, 8 Maynard Street, 419 421 7th Avenue, 1742 Bryant, 256 Miramar, 3847 Judah, 4557 Irving, 48 Shotwell, 443 7th Avenue, 674 6th Avenue, and 129 Ray Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts of the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make all final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them. The hearing will proceed as follows for the hearing item. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow property owners, appellant, or an applicant to speak. Then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak on the item. Then the department, if they desire, will address any public comments. And then the final chance for comment is for the property owner if there's any rebuttal. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it will mean the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. If you're a party to any of the cases today, we will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let us know. If you're a member of the public who would like to speak, wait for me to call for public comment, then use the Zoom raise your hand feature. If you're on a computer, to get access to the queue to speak. And if you're joining by phone, you can dial *9 to join the queue. When it's your turn to speak, I will call on you. You may need to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Questions and comments should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comment within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of the hearing. If I feel a question is warranted, I'll ask the question. After all comments are complete, I'll close the item. Before we consider the hearing item for today's hearing, the hearing is open for public comment. Members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any public comments at this time? Clerk Waiters.
Yes, I have a quick question since there's interpreters for all the items. So each time somebody speaks, there's going to be an interpreter for each item. Each time somebody speaks, to translate each person speaking, that's going to draw out a long thing when you have 13 items to talk on. So I'm not clear if this is going to be like a 4 or 5 hour meeting when you have that long with interpreters. So, and my last point is rebuttals. This is a tree hearing, and I would appreciate that in Cantonese they tell the people that are seeking translation that this is specifically around trees, not about everything else, because it will only draw out the hearing again if you're not talking about trees and around the trees that are being planted. Thank you very much for your time. Hope that's interpreted.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Buck, can you address that?
That's right. So the interpreters plan to recap a couple of key points. So they will not be interpreting every speaker. So when different property owners speak to their own address, those won't be interpreted. It'll just be the opening that we just had, a little bit of a recap of that, a little bit of my policy and procedures explanation, and then a little bit about the PowerPoint. So it will not, my goal, it's probably aggressive. I would love to be able to wrap up by 11:30. I would say noon at the latest to Mr. Nolte's question.
May I try just ask the attendees if any of them need Cantonese interpretations? Okay. 我而家想問下大家有冇人係需要即係需要廣東話嘅翻譯㗎？今日，如果你係需要嘅話，可唔可以舉手？Okay，唔該晒。咁and I'm going to do a quick recap of what we just talked about for her because she did raise her hand and she needed interpretations. 咁我哋今日係會呢個聽證會咧係會講解係呢個有物業代表係作出咗一個上訴咧，係關於公務局係想喺你哋個物業嗰度前面嗰度種樹啦，咁樣我哋今日咧會大概頭先我講過佢哋會做一個陳述，然之後咧就係會再你哋可以上訴提出你哋嘅原因嘅，咁樣咧今日我哋喺呢個聽證會嗰度咧就會係聽咗你嘅意見啦，咁但係咧今日係聽咗你嘅發言之後咧係唔會有決定作出到嘅，咁你所有嘅我哋會收納咗你哋今日嘅發言，然之後咧係會轉交俾我哋嘅主任，咁就提出我哋嘅建議，咁個主任咧係會作出最終嘅決定嘅，咁如果你已經提供咗你哋嘅聯絡方式俾我哋咧，我哋之後係會再通知翻你個決定嘅，咁今日個聽證會咧係會有呢一個程序嚟進行嘅，首先三藩市公務局嘅工作人員會發言啦，介紹每一個個案，然之後咧，我哋就係會俾業主或者申請人你哋上訴嘅人嘅發言啦。咁之後咧就會有公眾發言嘅。咁最後，如果我哋部門係需要回應你哋嘅評論嘅話咧，我哋係會有一個回應嘅時間。咁同埋亦都會俾業主咧有一個反駁嘅時間嘅。咁我哋嘅書記咧係會掌控住呢一個時間啦，每個人係會有3分鐘發言嘅。咁當剩翻30秒嘅時候咧，你會聽到一個叮一聲咁樣噶啦。咁如果你個發言係如果你係想提供任何視像嘅發言嘅話咧，就請你預先要同我哋講，咁我哋係可以再幫你安排嘅。咁到時我哋會再通知你再發言噶啦，唔該晒。Okay, thank you. I just interpreted what Mr. Jasmine and what you just said, Mr. Buck. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Now I will invite Chris Buck to present the hearing order.
Excuse me, Mr. Jasmine, I did have a statement to read before we
thanks.
begin the hearing. Just one moment. This is a statement from Joshua Clip as public comment for today's hearing. And he says, although I am a member of the San Francisco Urban Forestry Council, I make this public comment as a member of the public, a tireless but tired advocate for our urban forest, the co-founder of Mission Verde, and a 28-year San Francisco resident who has logged hundreds of volunteer hours planting trees as a planting leader with Friends of the Urban Forest. San Francisco has the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States. According to San Francisco Public Works, other major U.S. cities average a 25% tree canopy. 10 years ago, San Francisco's urban canopy measured a paltry 13.7%. Since that time, our city's tree canopy has declined. Thousands of trees have come down in cyclonic winter storms. SFRPD takes down hundreds of trees per year with no accountability. 400 plus in McLaren Park in this year alone. Private development projects have removed thousands more legally unprotected trees, often in the name of luxury homes and private driveways. And according to the most recent San Francisco Urban Forestry Council report, since 2017, San Francisco has not net gained a single street tree. In fact, since 2017, San Francisco has net lost 1,300 trees. In short, our tree losses dramatically outpace any attempted gains. I've volunteered as a planting leader with FUF since 2010. My work planting street trees spanned the 2017 Prop E ballot measure, which handed responsibility for street tree maintenance back to the city. This was supposed to be a net positive for our city's urban canopy. It was supposed to increase our tree canopy since post-Prop E, private property owners would no longer be saddled with tree maintenance costs. What we know now, based on all of the above, is that we are continuing to fail. Not only does the city have zero budget set aside for street tree planting, trees are planted on grant money, in lieu fees, donations, and decreasing POP-K funds. But it continues to defer to private property owners' objections to trees. This hearing is the first I've seen of its kind. I can't tell if this is progress, i.e. the city is finally pushing back, or regression, i.e. the city hasn't decided whether to plant when it legally can, or whether it will fold in the face of appeal. When Prop E, now Street Tree SF, first came into play, I remember FUF leadership instructing planting leaders like myself to not plant trees if property owners objected, and to let FUF handle the messaging. The idea was that it might take some time for property owners to understand that street trees weren't their personal responsibility anymore, that these were now public assets for the benefit of all San Franciscans for the city to manage. It's been 8 years. This is plenty of time for the city to get its messaging act together, including informing the public how street trees are critical for climate resilience, green infrastructure, and actually increase property values. The city could even point to the 2021 Climate Action Plan, a plan formed in response to the 2019 declaration that we are in a climate emergency. To shore up the need for tree planting, the 2021 CAP called for 40,000 new street trees within 30 years. The fact that this hearing is even happening demonstrates that the city has not done its work to inform the public. and the continued failure to educate and grow our urban canopy, in fact, allow it to backslide, is an indictment of city properties. I encourage the hearing officer or decision maker to read this article, which refers to tree planting as a critical aspect of health and air quality resilience project. And he named an article from the SF Examiner. According to this article, planting trees is low-hanging fruit. Is it? If it is, then why is this hearing even happening? We are failing to keep up with the rate of attrition, let alone critical climate milestones when it comes to our urban forest. Rather than fight the planting of trees, every person in this city could contribute to our resilience by fighting for them. I respectfully request that the city not only approve this planting and maintenance of trees at each of these locations, but that it partner with these property owners to help inform and educate our communities and neighborhoods on why this planting is so critical to our city's future and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Clerk Waiters. Is there a way that you can provide me a copy of that statement?
Yes, I am emailing it to you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the hearing order. May I have Public Works Representative Chris Buck present the order?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Buck, and I'm an employee with San Francisco Public Works Bureau of Urban Forestry. And I will be presenting for the staff in urban forestry today. And I have a PowerPoint where we'll show, discuss policies and procedures around tree planting in San Francisco. And then after that initial discussion about these planting policies, I'll then present photos and information about each of the sites that we're discussing today. And I believe we likely would pause after the policy discussion and before I get into the photos so that some of our interpreters can provide additional information. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll just take a moment. And let's do this. And let's view from beginning. And great. And Cerise, I just want to confirm that we have the hearing PowerPoint up, and then I do see that Crystal has her hand raised.
Yes, we do see your screen. And go ahead, Ms. Ling.
我做一個簡單嘅介紹，就係頭先佢嘅翻譯。大家好，我係三藩市公務局城市林務部嘅職員 Chris Buck。我今日咧最主要係會代表三藩市公務局進行發言。首先咧，我哋會對我哋三藩市市內種植行道樹嘅一啲政策同埋情況做一個簡單嘅介紹。喺我嘅介紹之後咧，跟住每一位物業嘅業主或者佢哋嘅代表咧就可以相繼發言。咁喺我哋呢一個整體嘅介紹之後，整體嘅介紹嘅情況嘅時候咧，係會提供廣東話嘅翻譯，然後有要求傳譯服務嘅業主咧，佢哋都會得到翻譯嘅服務嘅。
Thank you. So yeah, we'll continue. So welcome everybody, and thank you for your patience as we consider this important information. So this is Public Works Order 211192. It's a tree planting hearing, or otherwise known as a tree appeal hearing. The hearing officers already read through this boilerplate introduction about today's agenda, so I can move through that. These are the locations that we'll be reviewing today, and I do have an important announcement. In preparation for today's hearing, we were reviewing the sites, making sure that we had no concerns about planting, and I did confirm that there's an underground electric conflict at 3847 Judah Street on the Judah frontage, We are no longer pursuing planting a tree adjacent to Judah Street. This item will come up later in the hearing, but if that property owner or representative doesn't wish to remain on the line for the whole hearing, that will not impact the recommendation. We will not pursue planting of a tree at this site. But this is a full list of what we have today. Do you wish to interpret that? Perfect.
Yes，大家好，今日係三藩市公務局第21119號公聽會。今次嘅會議內容咧，主要係包括行道樹嘅種植。換句話嚟講，其實係關於我哋種植行道樹嘅申訴嘅處理嘅。咁咧，我哋可以睇到呢一頁咧，就係所有今日會討論嘅地址。而圈出嚟嘅 Judah 街3847號咧，我哋發現咗喺地下咧有一個電路同我哋種植行道樹嗰個位置係有衝突嘅，所以我哋係唔會喺呢一個位置嗰度種樹。如果該物業嘅業主想留低討論嘅話咧，咁其實佢可以留低，但係我哋呢個唔會影響我哋唔種樹呢個決定。
Thank you. And talking about, the hearing today, Public Works has a goal of ensuring safe, clean, and green infrastructure and public rights of way. Our mission is to preserve and grow the urban forest while balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. These are a visual of the activities that it takes to maintain, enhance, and expand the urban forest. We have a tree ordinance, Article 16 of the Public Works Code, that establishes authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding trees. San Francisco's urban forestry ordinance is codified under Article 16 of the Public Works Code. During public comment, someone brought this up, but prior to 2017, San Francisco only maintained about 1/3 of the city's street trees. This is shown on the map. Any highlighted area on this map were typically major thoroughfares, busy streets where the city planted and maintained trees as part of transit improvements and as a way to mitigate the negative impacts of auto traffic on the residents who live along those streets. You also notice in Hunters Point in the lower right and in top center, Western Addition, where there was a lot of public housing, the city assumed responsibility for those trees, but that was really the only exception. So before 2017, 2/3 of property owners were responsible for pruning street trees adjacent to their property and for also making sidewalk repair if the tree roots damaged the property. San Francisco completed its survey of all of the trees in the public right-of-way, all the trees in the sidewalks, and then created and completed an urban forest plan that called for the planting of more trees across the city. The goal really for the city is so that all available planting sites in the sidewalks are planted with trees. And it's going to take us a long time, but we are committed to achieving that goal. With the voters passing Prop E in November of 2016, as of July 1st, 2017, the city is now responsible for maintaining all the trees. This is a visual example that shows how we organize the maintenance cycle of trees in San Francisco. We've already completed all the areas in the gray. We're actively working on light green and dark green. And our approach was to do the most trees, the largest trees. So we essentially were doing the worst first. We went to survey, we maintained the trees that were needed the most work citywide. So now we're getting around to some of the other areas that have fewer trees.
Mr. Busk, excuse
yeah,
me.
Go ahead.
Can you back up one screen and allow translation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
OK， 大家好，頭先咧作為一個簡單嘅講解，就係關於我哋三藩市公務局係負責啲乜嘢嘅。我哋三藩市公務局嘅目標咧，其實就係我哋確保我哋嘅公用道路係安全、乾淨同埋有足夠嘅綠化噶啦。We can okay stay on
Yeah.
stay on
Yeah.
the other next.
Okay.
Thank you.
This one?
Yes, please.
Okay.
從所有關於三藩市我哋三藩市所謂嘅行道樹或者係街樹嘅種植同埋養護咧，都喺2017年7月1號之後咧，轉交到我哋市府作為一個責任嘅。其實喺2017年之前咧，大概1/3嘅行道樹係由市府管理，跟住咧2/3嘅行道樹咧，佢嘅修剪啦、保育啦同埋產生嘅損壞嘅維護，其實全部都係私人物業業主嘅責任嚟嘅。咁但係通過咗我哋嘅法案之後咧，咁而家就正式轉為咗我哋三藩市公務局嘅責任。Right, please. 然後我哋而家睇到嘅咧，就係我哋嘅城市森林計劃。城市森林計劃咧，就係通過咗2017年嘅法案之後，我哋作為一個整體嘅森林覆蓋率，我哋城市裏邊綠化覆蓋率嘅計劃嚟嘅。呢一度咧就係由呢一個可以睇到，呢一個係我哋修剪全市範圍之內嘅行道樹嘅行進表。咁啊，而家灰色嘅區域咧就係我哋已經修剪過嘅樹木，淺綠色同埋深綠色咧就係我哋計劃會修剪嘅樹木嚟嘅。咁我哋每年咧就會獲得市府嘅撥款1900萬啦，去投入到我哋嘅三藩市行道樹計劃裏邊，包括種植新嘅行道樹啦，同埋修剪行道樹，同埋維修呢一個因為樹根造成嘅人行道嘅破壞嘅。咁而next slide please. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. And before you begin, Mr. Buck, caller ending in 281, we have you raised your hand. How may I help you? Can you unmute yourself, caller? Phone number ending in 281. How could I help you?
Oh, yes. I'm calling. I was told to dial this number for the tree hearing. And my husband had it on his phone, but he's got to leave for work now because it was supposed to be at 10 o'clock. So I'm joining now instead of him because it's taken such a long time.
That's fine. You can join, and if you or he has any written statements, you can write it to our address that's in the on the hearing notice as well. It should be an address there, but it's
Okay.
no problem. And this will be recorded, and you can view and listen to the recording once it's available. Thank you for joining.
Okay.
And there will
Okay.
be an opportunity for you to speak as well a little later in the hearing.
Okay. All right then.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Buck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So with the passage of Proposition E, the city now maintains the trees in the public right-of-way. We refer to our program as Street Tree SF. And again, the goal is to maintain the existing trees every 5 years. Because of the pandemic, we're a little bit behind, but we've completed 75% of the complete maintenance cycle. We have on our website the city broken into maps that allows us to prioritize the areas that need the greatest amount of work. So we have a systematic and strategic approach to the maintenance of street trees in San Francisco. This is a visual example of what we have on our website, just to show that we are actively performing this work citywide. I could pause there for, yeah.
Thank you.
I think
Detour.
this is good.
I think the Street Tree SF slide is the first slide we get. Yeah, please. Thank you. 自從通過咗 E 提案之後咧，咁我哋就有一個三藩市工務局咧就已經做咗一個叫做三藩市行道樹計劃嘅項目啦。我哋嘅目標就係喺5年內咧，為修剪同埋保育我哋市內嘅所有而家現有嘅行道樹。咁因為疫情嘅少少阻滯啦，咁但係而家我哋已經完成咗75%嘅目標㗎啦。咁 next slide please。喺我哋嘅官網上邊咧，我哋係有一個地圖，上邊可以顯示到而家每一個街區或者每一個區嘅行道樹嘅狀況，同埋究竟有冇得到修剪。咁我哋嘅原則就係情況最壞嘅樹木或者係街區咧，優先係得到修剪嘅。咁呢一度咧就係我哋一個網站嘅地圖嘅截圖，係俾大家睇下究竟我哋嘅地圖係點樣嘅。
Thank you. And so one of the key things we'll be talking about today in the hearing is how we select trees and plant trees in the public right-of-way and the sidewalks. So there's a specific document referred to as a director's order. It has a specific number associated with it. And we create this order with feedback from other city agencies like the Public Utility Commission that regulates street lighting. They care about how close trees come to their street lights, and the MTA. The MTA has strong feelings about making sure that intersections are visible for public safety. So the planting guidelines it's a joint effort among many agencies that establish where within the public right-of-way we can plant a street tree. And one note on the left, so on the left of the screen, I want to let you know that there are not a lot of people in San Francisco who are trusted or have the knowledge base to make the decisions on where trees are planted in the public right-of-way. So I did want to assure any property owner that the same process, more or less, that goes into planting of trees outside of high-profile locations like the new Apple store on Union Square, the Salesforce building, any streetscape project that you see in the public right-of-way, and then any construction triggers. When someone builds a new home, they're required to plant new trees. And all of this tree planting requirement is reviewed by Public Works, by our small little bureau. So it's a moment and a point of pride that I like to point out that we will take the same amount of care and review and decision-making in front of your own property as we do for these properties citywide. So that's a pretty neat thing. And I won't read through all of this, but we do have, an overarching goal and an acknowledgement that planting street trees and landscaping enhances the physical, ecological, and cultural aspects of the city. And there's more and more importance placed around the environmental benefits of street trees. So proper tree selection and planting does ensure the healthy growth and longevity of trees. And we have more information about the tree species that we select in San Francisco. And on the next screen, these are the specific measurements we look for from utilities when we're placing a tree in the public right-of-way. It involves other city review from other city agencies, but all of the sites we'll review today have been evaluated and have been found to be free of a conflict with all of these requirements. So it is amazing. There's a lot of sites that we can't plant, but there are sites we actually can plant once we rule out all of these guidelines. And maybe we'll pause there for a moment.
Thank you. Can we go back to the previous slides? Yeah, please. 今日我哋最主要嘅議題咧，就係點樣選擇我哋需要種植嘅樹種啦，同埋我哋會點樣種嘅。呢一啲標準咧，其實我哋係有一個三藩市工務局局長指令明確咁樣要求，同時咧亦都想令大家放心嘅就係我哋唔係一個工務局單獨做出嘅決定嚟嘅。我哋呢一啲咧，其實係諮詢過其他嘅市府部門，包括諮詢咗水利局，佢哋因為水利局係負責我哋三藩市嘅街燈，所以咧佢哋嘅關注點就係我哋種嘅行道樹究竟會唔會影響到佢哋街燈嘅照明。我哋同時咧亦都有諮詢好似交通局啦，交通局咧就希望我哋啲樹種植同埋長大之後咧，係唔會對交通同埋十字路口呢一啲進行視線嘅阻擋嘅。咁所以咧，我哋種嘅每一棵行道樹咧，其實都係一個聯合協調嘅行動嚟嘅。咁喺我哋嘅最左手邊，呢一個 slide 嘅最左手邊啦，咁其實就係想同大家講，無論係呢一啲大型嘅工程，即係譬如係我哋嘅獵人角啊，跟住聯合廣場隔離嘅蘋果旗艦店，或者係其他發展商進行嘅大型嘅房地產發展項目，佢哋需要種樹嘅標準，同埋我哋喺你嘅物業前邊種樹嘅標準，都係同一套標準同埋同一套審核程序嚟嘅，全部都係由我哋工務局嘅城市林務部去負責。咁跟住 ，next slide please。Next slide, please.
Thanks. It's sticking for some reason. Let's see.
Oh.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
咁呢一度咧就係我哋截取嘅我哋局長指令嘅關於種樹嘅一個目標嘅。咁我稍稍讀一讀啦。我哋嘅目標咧就係喺公用道路上種樹或者係進行園景綠化咧，可以美化使用，提升生態環境同埋文化面貌啦。咁由於咧行道樹係城市綠化嘅最重要構成部分，所以選擇合適嘅樹種、栽種點嘅位置同埋設計咧至關重要嘅。咁我哋種樹嘅標準就係希望可以確保呢一啲樹健康咁樣成長，同埋延長佢哋嘅樹齡，同埋增強我哋嘅街景特色。Next slide please。咁喺我哋嘅官網上邊咧，咁其實你係可以睇到究竟點樣去申請種植樹木嘅一個許可證嘅。Next slide please。同時咧，我哋無論係私人業主佢申請種植行道樹，或者係我哋種植行道樹，我哋都係採取同一套標準，就係同其他城市市府嘅公用設施保持最低限度嘅距離。而上邊我哋圈住嘅咧，就係對每一樣城市嘅公用設施嘅各自我哋需要保持嘅距離。Thank you。跟住喺呢一度咧，其實就可以睇得到啦。Have we covered the slide?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a repeat. So.
OK。所以呢一度咧係一個更加簡單嘅，就係睇到對每一樣嘅設施我哋嘅距離啦。所以如果係今日會討論嘅議題咧，其實大家可以放心，就係我哋已經保持咗一個安全嘅距離同埋安全嘅標準。Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the goal with not planting too close to these street furniture or utilities or different settings in the public right-of-way is to avoid future conflicts. We want to plant a tree that will be there and be there a long time and contribute in a great way. Again, this is our urban forestry ordinance, and it establishes our process for planting and removal of street trees, section 806. And so 806 says the department may determine to plant a new tree in the sidewalk or public right-of-way. The department will undertake maintenance responsibility, and we do reach out to notify the public. That might be done by Public Works directly, or it may be done by our community partner, Friends of the Urban Forest. And so many folks who are on the call today were reached out to by our partner friends, the Urban Forest. All cities have a nonprofit partner that help with tree planting because they can use volunteer labor and other resources to help the city achieve its goals. So should I pause there for a moment?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
三藩市公務局對於市內嘅行道樹種植嘅管理咧，係根據我哋嘅公務局條例第16條同埋第806款嘅。咁 next slide please. Oh, sorry, the previous one. Yeah. 所以呢一度咧，我哋可以睇到我哋嘅公務局條例第16條旗下咧，就係我哋嘅城市林務法例。喺個法例裏邊咧，唔單止係規定咗點樣種植行道樹啦，亦都規定咗點樣去砍伐行道樹，嚟確保所有都係按照程序嘅。Next slide, please. Next.
Yeah, that's it.
我哋發出咗種植行道樹嘅通知之後咧，咁30日之內，其實私人物業業主咧都可以提出上訴嘅。今日嚟到我哋呢一個聽證會公證會嘅大部分業主咧，都係由我哋嘅非牟利機構城市森林之友通知。其實每一個市府嘅機構喺種樹嘅情況之下，其實都會同非牟利機構合作。因為咧，我哋可以利用佢哋嘅志願者嘅服務嚟節省我哋嘅公帑，可以節省我哋嘅人力成本。咁喺30日嘅通知之內咧，參加咗我哋嘅公證會，然後之後對於係唔係喺你嘅物業前邊種樹咧，我哋會喺會後稍後咧會發出通知嘅。而我哋嘅最終局長發出嘅決定咧，其實係一個最終決定，係唔可以再進行另外嘅上訴。Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, so that kind of concludes the, and this is a typo, that concludes the kind of general background portion of this. And so now I'm going to go through all of, so this could take a tiny bit of interpretation. Basically, the next step is I'm going to move through each of the addresses that are the subject of the hearing and show a number of photos at each address. And then when I conclude with this, the next step following these photos would be the opportunity for adjacent property owners to raise their hands to comment about this feedback. But perhaps you could explain that I won't pause after each one. We'll go through all of them together, and then we'll pause.
跟住落嚟，我哋會討論每一個地址嘅個案啦。咁喺我對每一個地址進行咗陳述之後咧，最後物業嘅業主其實佢哋可以舉手，然後就會可以進行佢哋嘅理由陳述。
Thank you. And Crystal, if you feel that it would be helpful, maybe after a couple of the first, if you wanted to just do a little bit of an interpretation of what I'm explaining, you know, maybe midway through or maybe at the end of it, let me know. Maybe after a couple, you could kind of decide if it's time to help.
I think Pinky will go through the.
Yeah, I think we're providing the interpretation for the two addresses that needs interpretations.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll just watch for raised hands. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the first site, thanks everyone again for your patience. I know these are important matters. So the first one is 674 6th Avenue. And I want to explain that in an ideal world, when we receive concern and questions about tree planting, we first try to answer those questions. There are times when someone has a specific question and we answer it, and essentially the opposition or the concerns about the planting are addressed, and so we move forward with the planting. There have been some scenarios where we're so when we're pulling together the resources to actually plant the trees, if it's too close to planting, we really need to plant. And if the director makes a decision that we need to move that tree and pave over, we will do it after the fact. So I do want to acknowledge that we try to listen to the public feedback, and if we're not resolving it, to put the planting site on hold if possible. So you'll see today there's a lot of trees that have been planted already, and then some sites that are not yet planted. And it just means that someone either caught us soon enough or it worked out where we were able to just pause the planting. So I just want to let you know not to feel discouraged by that, but it is important to understand that there's a lot of resources that get us to the point of planting. This is an example where, and I think this is an important point for us to share with all callers. So please, Crystal, go ahead.
稍稍講一講就係咧，咁可能喺種樹嘅情況之下咧，大家已經見到你嘅物業之前嗰個種植地點咧，可能已經鋪咗泥或者係已經種咗樹。咁喺今日我哋嘅公證會之後，當我哋嘅局長作出咗最終決定咧，咁其實我哋係會，例如如果係種咗棵樹嘅話，其實我哋係可以鋪翻水泥嘅。所以唔需要覺得已經種咗樹係咪就係木已成舟，覺得我哋今日係冇辦法作出申訴咧？最後其實我哋係無論係種咗樹或者係未種樹都可以作出申訴，同埋我哋亦都可以及時咁樣去根據我哋局長最後嘅決定嚟作出相應嘅行動嘅。
Thank you. And these are just additional photos of the site showing that we were looking at all utilities in the sidewalk, all their considerations. We need 5 feet minimum from the sewer line. We have that. We need at least 3 feet from the water line. We've got at least 4 feet. So overall, the site did meet our planting guidelines, and so that's why we initiated the planting of the tree. This next one is 419 and 421 7th Avenue. And this site has not been cut, but this is the proposed location. The markings have washed off over time, but just showing this space to us is a lot. This is roomy. We have a lot of room. The meter on the upper left corner is a water meter that runs perpendicular to the property. We only need to be 3 feet on center from center of that utility to center of where the new tree would go. We have at least 3.5 feet. And so we propose to plant the tree in between the water meter line and the driveway curb cut. The other side of the frontage starts to get a little bit tight with the neighbor's water line and likely a sewer trap that's not visible underneath one of these garbage toters. But so this address, 419, 421, 7th Ave, there's room on the right to plant the tree on the right. Or again, if there's no sewer trap on the left, just as well could be planted on the left. And I don't have a photo of the original proposed location, but there is room to plant a tree here. One more location on 7th Avenue is at 443. And again, there's plenty of room for a tree in this location. This location was cut physically, but the tree not yet planted. Again, when we can tell that we're just, there's a lot of information to cover with an applicant or a property owner, and they're expressing very strong feelings and opinions about the planting, we do try to pause the planting if it's possible. Again, we only need to be 3 feet on center from the water line here in the upper right corner, and we have about at least 5 feet on center. So this is a site that we propose to plant. Just showing other trees in the block, consistent with how we've planted other trees. This is a very wide sidewalk, as wide as we get in San Francisco, so plenty of room. Regarding 1434 15th Street, same situation. The tree was actually planted. The plenty of room in the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. Just a reminder that the sidewalk is not private property. It's also not owned by the city. It belongs to the public, and so it's not city property, it's public right-of-way. The city has the responsibility to maintain trees on behalf of the public. We have high voltage lines and low voltage lines, so this has to be a small stature tree at maturity. And so the species is small leaf Tristania, which will top out still beneath those power lines, so we don't have a conflict with the power lines. Again, plenty of room to plant, so to be consistent with how we've handled similar sites, we did initiate the planting. This one's out of focus, but I'm just trying to show a lot of other trees in the neighborhood. One of the biggest challenges we have in the city is we need to be consistent with how we handled similar cases so that the public feels that there's trust and honesty about what the city does. I do want to point out, as many of you have pointed out, that we have plenty of missing trees, that are cut already that need to be replanted. And we're aware of where those locations are. The one in front of the stop sign in the distance can't be replanted because we need at least 20 to 25 feet in front of a traffic signal. So there's an empty basin in front of the stop sign that we'll pave over. And then I see there's an empty basin across the street. So we are generally aware of these sites, and we'll also be trying to plant them as well. Our code actually requires that we plant replacement trees, but this previous site we looked at is this one in green. The next site is 1742 Bryant Street, and this tree has been planted. It's a magnolia, St. Mary's. There are power lines, but the mature established height of this tree will top out at 25 feet, which is still below the low voltage lines. The phone and cable lines are the thicker lower lines, and those they're almost designed anticipating contact with foliage. We actually recommend that people let the tree canopy hide a lot of those lines. PG&E prunes the lines at the top that conduct electricity. They inspect annually, but we're selecting a magnolia that will round out below the lines that require pruning. Again, this is a magnolia tree, and we have well more than the minimum 3 feet from the water meter, and then to the left of that is the sewer clean out, and we have additional feet in addition to the 5 feet required. So, and yellow is the gas line. We have plenty of space from the gas line. This is another view of this tree in the site, and just showing that there are other trees in the block already, and looking the other way. Edinburgh, 551 Edinburgh. This is the frontage and the property. These markings have faded, so what I did in a lot of cases is I didn't do it on this one, but on others I will have green marks on my photos just to show the location. And so on this one, this is where the site is proposed in the center of this image. And this one, a lot of room. You can see the marking, so it is opposite the doorway, and plenty of clearance from the gas line and other utilities at 551. We have probably 3, 6, 9, 10 or 11 feet from that sewer, and we only need 5 feet. 559 and 563 Edinburgh. This tree is actually mostly in front of 563 Edinburgh. So it's just one tree in front of the two locations. The markings had faded, so the rest of the images will have these marks just to show the proposed location that's free of conflicts from surrounding utilities. Again, that's 559 in front of us, but the tree is really pretty much mostly in front of 563. And what we're trying to do here is just space it between the utilities as best as possible. And so again, this is plenty of space from all the area utilities. One more view of that. The next one is 4557 Irving Street. This is the location. We have not yet planted the tree, but we have cut the proposed location. It's a corner property, and you can see there's a lot of trees already planted on the block. This is the idea, is that we're slowly catching up and filling in the gaps in the city. This site doesn't have power lines. The power lines are across the street. But again, no utility conflicts with the proposed location. And this is the address 3847, where we are no longer proposing to plant a tree. We're always reviewing, and we basically looked at the markings after we called in the underground service alert, and it's faded, but this is a high voltage vault that stores electricity beneath, and these lines run pretty much in the center of the area, and so we can't get enough clearance between these power lines and the curb. So after review, we found that this site is no longer plantable, and we probably just did not get that information back to the property owner. So the recommendation for this site is we will not be pursuing planting a tree at 3847 Judah because of that conflict. The next one is 546 Madrid, and this tree has been planted already. And this is a view of what that looks like. It's in line with other trees on the block. It's a small stature tree at maturity, and we met all the minimum clearances required from utilities. And another view just showing a lot of other trees in the block, and we're just trying to find those missing spots. And really in the future, all sites will eventually be planted, and what should stand out to us more is that there is a missing tree, not that whole streets don't have trees. So 8 Maynard is the next one, and this site has been cut, but the tree not planted, and plenty of room here. You can see this is a more typical sidewalk for us. We need at least 4 feet of path of travel for pedestrians, and so we do have that here. We have enough room from the water line and other utilities. There's a gas line is the circle on the far left, and a water line on the upper left. But it does meet all of our guidelines. We're near this no parking sign, or the street parking sign, the small pole. We actually want to cluster obstructions closer together so that the right-of-way is as free as possible. So we're not concerned. We'll establish the tree, and the height of the tree will eventually be above the no parking sign, or it's a parking sign that shows folks when they need to move the car for street cleaning. Here's just another view of trees and tree sites on Maynard, showing again that there are a lot of street trees already on the block, but we still have gaps in our coverage. This next one is 256 Miramar. This was the proposed location. The tree has been planted, and we were reached out to by the property owner, and this was our nonprofit partner. They contract out the cutting of the sidewalk, and when they were cutting the sidewalk, that individual certainly hadn't received any word yet about not cutting. So that was a situation where it was cut. To the property owner's credit, they did what they could to get our attention and say, look, we really want to talk about this. We don't want a tree planted here. That really does help. We try to respond to that. However, the tree was planted again. If it's very close to planting day, the resources required to get to that point, we do move forward with that. I also want to note all the other trees planted on the block across the street and down the street as well. But to be consistent with how we handled other sites, it does meet our guidelines. And so the tree in front of Miramar was planted. This is another view of Miramar. I wanted to show this before and after, that there are a lot of neighborhoods in the city that have been pretty much ignored, and they have all the traffic, 101, Highway 280, power plants, sewage treatment plants, and it's really an environmental justice issue. But this is showing the progress that we are making citywide, and this is really the policy of the future for the city. But that was striking, just in 10 years, the change that we think is a positive change on the street. The next address is 129 Ray Street, and then I think we just have one more after this, and then we can certainly pause for some interpretation. So 129 Ray Street, that's a sewer lateral on the far left. We need at least 5 feet. We have that. That's 5 to 6 feet. And I took these photos just to show, I understand every property is different. There's a setback here with cars and boats and things. And I don't know if the tree is going to interfere with the access, but there is a driveway here that still allows access to the property. Some properties don't have a driveway or a garage or access like that, and it would be a parking spot. So it is a viable planting spot. This is a street, Ray, that doesn't have a lot of trees. And I mean it good-naturedly, but we do, policy-wise, the trees really are coming. It's an environmental justice issue, and it's something that we're working on and need more funding for. And one of our final sites, 48 Shotwell, here are some photos of the site. Tree has not been planted yet, but it meets our planting guidelines. We look closely for any conflicts, and it meets all of our planting guidelines. So to be consistent with how we handled similar cases, we planted the tree. Or excuse me, we proposed to plant the location. These are the utilities, and we have plenty of clearance from those. So that's largely the completion of the staff presentation. I think the one final thing I just want to say on species, selecting trees, we have an Urban Forestry Council, and we have a listing of street tree species. So we can't let the property owner pick the species. We need to look at maintaining citywide tree species diversity. And we also plant trees that have similar growth patterns, so we have a better chance of pruning trees that grow at the same rate at the same time on a block. So we will have diversity citywide, but sometimes an owner might ask, can I select my own species? There are times when that works, but there are most times where it may not align. So sometimes there's a choice of 1 or 2, but many times they're not a choice. I wish it was different, but we just can't. People are always free to plant different things in their backyard. But that, for sure, I want to let our interpreters ask questions or cover what you wish to cover.
大家好，以上咧就係我哋全部嘅公務局職員嘅介紹同埋總結啦。咁稍後咧其實係會俾每一個業主同埋或者佢哋嘅代表可以發言嘅。咁稍講一講就係咧關於樹種嘅選擇，可能有一啲業主希望可以選擇種喺自己物業前邊嘅嗰個樹種或者係樹嘅類型啦。但係想提醒一下就係，其實我哋三藩市咧係有一個我哋嘅城市森林諮詢委員會，亦都有一個文件就係規定咗我哋市內可以種植嘅 一個樹種嘅一個目錄列表嘅。咁咧，我哋喺選擇樹種嘅時候咧，咁其實有幾個考慮嘅要素啦。第一個就係根據全市嘅種植嘅唔同嘅種類，然後希望保持多樣性。另一個咧就係喺同一個街區嘅時候，我哋希望選擇嘅樹種生長周期係類似嘅，所以整體望落去咧係會和諧同埋協調。咁之後咧，如果需要傳譯嘅業主喺輪到你哋發言嘅時候，我哋會有口譯員為你翻譯。
Thank you. And so for the hearing officer and our clerk, Cerise, I do believe with the staff conclusion, we have we're 1/3 of the way through. The next section would be to hear from property owners who live adjacent to the proposed plantings. And then following that comment, it would be it'd be public comment. So with that, I just want to hand that over.
Thanks for that, Mr. Buck. Yeah, we'll now ask for property owner comment for each of the addresses. And that's going to be a tricky thing to manage, I'm sure. Maybe we can start with the first address, 674 6th Avenue.
Yes, as the hearing officer calls your address, can you please raise your hand? I see a hand right now. If you are not for 674, can you lower your hand for the moment, please? Okay, call the address again, Mr. Jasmine, and then I can proceed that way. I'll look for their hand.
674 6th Avenue.
Okay, we have a hand. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. I appreciate the time of all of you. I'm Chris Davies. I'm the owner of 674 6th Avenue in the Richmond district. I want you to know I'm not anti-tree. In fact, I was a member in the 1980s of the Inner Sunset Action Committee, where I was on the street tree planting committee, and I've personally planted dozens of street trees. My appeal today is based not on that, it's based on the lack of communication and buy-in to property owner. That's me. I came to 674 6th Avenue one day to find a saw cut in my sidewalk with no warning, no indication of who had done this sidewalk, no information whatsoever. Before I could even get information, 2 days later, a tree was planted. Again, no notice, no buy-in, no choice of species. I wasn't given the courtesy of making a choice of species from perhaps a list of available trees. Also, the curb cut looks huge and is much larger than I can imagine being needed. Maybe you can speak to that later, I don't know. Several questions for you, please. Number one, if and when the street tree raises the sidewalk with its roots, is the city responsible? You did mention the public right of way. It's not private. It's not the city. Then who fixes that? And let me inform you. Just a few weeks ago, I tripped on my next door neighbor's raised sidewalk, raised by tree roots, and I fractured a rib. Not fun. My neighbor has tried many times to call 311 over the course of the last year or year and a half. Asking that the sidewalk be fixed, no success, zero success. It took a call to my D8 supervisor even to get a temporary patch. And we were told the fix is some years away, no determinate answer when that will be fixed. This is just simply unacceptable. Question two, you did mention Proposition E, but if someone trips on that sidewalk incongruity, is the city responsible, or does that lawsuit fall on me? Question number three, street planting in front of 674 6th Avenue, I believe is the tree that was put in. I just saw the name today, in fact, that no one told me what the species was, but I believe it's one of those trees that drips sticky substances much of the year, and that is not acceptable. I don't know why I couldn't have been given a choice, but I just heard from you. lately in this hearing that you don't always have that choice because of other constraints. Well, that also is very unsatisfactory. So my questions: street tree liability, raised sidewalk, large size of the curb cut, and who's going to fix? Who's going to fix it when they will raise the roots? When the roots will raise the sidewalk? Last question is: do we get an answer today? Do we get an answer in an email, or what is the procedure past this?
What will happen is we'll complete the hearing today, and I will make recommendations to our Public Works Director, and the director will make final determinations once she's had a chance to review recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Jasmine. Just let me put it on record. That is my choice, that the tree be removed and the sidewalk re-cemented. As to my question, sir. Liability, sidewalks raised, lack of my next door neighbor's sidewalk being over a year, me tripping and falling and breaking a rib. Does any of that resonate with this committee?
I hear you and I understand the concerns that you have. I would look to Mr. Buck to provide some rebuttal to your questions.
Sure. I'm going to address several of those now because I think there'll be a common theme and question for the hearing. But then I'll hold all other kind of comments to the end of the feedback from all of the property owners so that we don't have kind of active rebuttal. But to confirm, Public Works is responsible for repairing tree root related sidewalk damage. The liability is now with the city, City and County of San Francisco Public Works. And then the basin size, yes, we do want larger basin sizes. It's much better for the tree. The other responses will probably follow up individually, but I do want to express that information because it may help with some of the other public and property owner comments later today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next address, Mr. Jasmine.
The next address is 419, 421 7th Avenue.
If this is your address, can you please raise your hand? I see no hands.
Okay, thank you. Next address is 443 7th Avenue.
Or 443 7th Avenue, can you please raise your hand? I see no hands at this time.
Next address is 1434 15th Street.
I see no hands at this time.
Next address 1742 Bryant Street. Yeah.
I see no hands at this time.
Next address is 1551 Edinburgh Street.
There are no hands at this time.
559 and 563 Edinburgh Street.
There's one hand. Hold on just a moment. You may unmute yourself, please.
This is regarding 50 Shotwell, 48 Shotwell.
No, this is for 559 563 Edinburgh.
Oh, so sorry. Okay,
No worries.
sorry. I'll lower my hand.
There are no hands for the other address, Mr. Jasmine.
Next address is 4557 Irving.
4557號 Irving 街嘅業主，你想唔想發言？如果你想發言嘅話，請你舉手。
I don't see any hands. Can you ask them one more time, please?
4557號 Irving 街嘅業主，你想唔想發言？如果你想發言嘅，請你而家舉手。
There are no hands at this time.
3847 Judah Street.
$3847 Judah Street. Can you raise your hand, please? There are no hands at this time.
546 Madrid Street.
546號 Madrid 街嘅係，咁請你發言。
而家聽唔聽到我講嘢啊？
聽到。
OK，係我係546 Madrid 嘅，咁我有幾樣嘢就係想反映就係、第一，我對面間屋，我對面係成個公園喺度，我哋左右邊對面全部都係好多樹，咁有幾個問題啦，第一就係基礎設施問題，咁我覺得我哋種一棵樹喺度嘅話，你哋啲樹根會影響我哋間屋個行人道都會影響到嘅，因為我哋已經唔，我住喺呢度已經差唔多20年啦，我哋已經整咗係冇人幫我哋整，咁個前面嗰啲水泥已經爆晒，都係啲根整到爆咗，我哋要去維修嘅，咁。你哋成日個講就話政府會解決去淋水去乜嘢，唔需要我哋負責。但係安全設施係會邊個負責咧？假如人哋跌親，因為爆咗人哋跌親嘅話，係會告我哋，還是去邊個要負責呢個費用？ 但係費用已經係我哋不嬲係我哋已經自己啦，因為政府係冇人會幫我哋去整翻個行人道嘅。咁呢個係好大個問題啦。咁第二就係我覺得個安全性個關注就係，因為你而家整部樹係啱啱喺我入個車房嗰個位，同埋我落車或者褪車嘅，其實係會睇到棵樹係會，而家仲係細棵樹，但係都係已經係去影響到我覺得我交通安全同埋我照明，即係嗰個呢個視線呢個問題啦。咁同埋另外就係維護嘅問題，我覺得因為好多我哋隔離左右啦，嗰啲樹全部都係好大㗎啦。每一日我哋係無論係掃幾多次啲樹葉就係周地成個門口係樹葉嘅，因為啲樹葉係飛到係我哋係周圍飛嘅。咁就算唔係個個屋主個業主都會去掃，但係譬如我今日掃咗，我轉頭我門口又係好多樹葉，基本上係唔會停落呢個問題。我覺得我哋會浪費好多時間去整乾淨我哋自己嘅門口。咁我哋唔整嘅話，又會俾人哋投訴。我哋唔整好個水泥，又俾人投訴。我覺得呢樣嘢係佢對我哋已經係好唔咩嘅。咁另外個樹根會唔會影響到個水管啊？會唔會影響到嗰啲utilities 嗰啲管啊？我唔知啊，OK，我唔係咩，但係我知道我哋門口係爆幾次㗎啦。咁同埋我覺得我哋其實我係覺得我都認為係有啲樹係好嘅，但係我覺得我已經對面門口對面成個公園喺度，同埋我哋左右邊係都有樹嘅，我覺得唔需要係再加咯，就係中間又加棵樹。我希望政府係可以用呢啲錢
30 seconds.
我希望
你仲有30秒。
OK，我哋希望你哋政府係用嗰啲報稅人，我哋俾個錢去做啲應該去做嘅嘢，而唔係嘥啲錢喺呢方面。係有嘅話，係冇咁嘅需要去做呢樣嘢。咁我就覺得呢啲係全部同埋過敏，因為我哋已經好多人都係過緊問題嘅。咁我覺得你種多樹嘅話，會惡化我哋嘅過敏症，同埋你而家係阻住成個我個門口個 view，對面我睇唔到公園，基本上會以後噶啦。咁我屋企人嘅話，日日都
time
係啦。咁我希望你哋真係去關注下呢啲問題。
Thank you. I'll provide the interpretation for her. So I have several points. First is that I already have a park across the street from my property. And the other is well, actually I'll keep going. One thing is when the tree roots does get raised, who will be repairing for those? And I've been living here for over 20 years, and I've done several repairs already when there's been issue like this, when the tree have been falling a lot of leaves, and also the roof is affecting the sidewalk. The government said that you will maintain all of these trees, but from my experience, there's been issue with safety, and we haven't had anyone helping us repair this tree. And the second point that I want to bring up is that the tree will be right at my entryway to my garage. I think this will create lighting issues because this will be dangerous when I'm coming in and out of the garage. And on my street, my next door neighbors, there's already a lot of trees already. And when there are a lot of leaves, not everyone will sweep and clean them up. And that's also create a hazard to pedestrian. And if there's anything happen, any accidents were to happen near my property, I will be the one responsible and be liable for that. And this will also make me spend a lot of times to clean. And this is unnecessary because if I don't clean this up, I'll get complaints and I can't find anybody to help me. And also just want to bring up again that, I mean, I like trees, but then I do want to let you know we do have a park way across from us, and there's a lot of trees already planted on my block. I would like if we have, I mean, if you want to spend the taxpayer money to spend on other more useful things. Lastly, many folks also have allergies, and if we have more trees like this would just aggravate our symptoms. Then with the interpretations.
Thank you for those comments. I think we are going to hold to respond to those to the end. Is that correct, Mr. Buck?
Correct. I think that's helpful. I jotted them down so I can do that.
And we have two other hands that are showing, and I want to find out if they are for this address as well.
546 Madrid Street.
Hello, caller. Are you for 546?
I'm trying to, can you hear me? I'm trying to do 421, 419. Your Zoom is not very friendly to try and let us unmute ourselves, just so you know. This is honest, this is pretty bad.
You are correct. The callers do not have the ability to unmute themselves.
Yeah, I had to download Zoom, which is ridiculous. We can't call in on the tap to call in number without going through all this hoopla. I had it. That's unbelievable. This is unbelievable for someone who doesn't normally use Zoom. But I need to discuss my address as well.
Okay, Mr. Jasmine, do you want to go back or to wait for her after we finish the current address we're on?
And I'm also at a time crunch because I thought this was going to be an hour and it's now over an hour and a half. So those of us who are trying to get off of work, this is not, this is.
Let's confirm that we don't have no more comments for 546, and then we can move back to 419, 421, 7th Avenue.
Hello, caller ending in 489. Are you able to unmute yourself, please? Hello? I hear something.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Are you calling for 546 Madrid Street?
No, I'm calling for 1434 15th Street. And like the other lady, I'm on a telephone and you're asking me to raise my hand, which I can't do on a telephone. And I've had to call in on a second line now to get your attention. And just like her, we thought this would be a short hearing, and it's now gone on for an hour and a half. My husband started it. He had to go off to work. I'm waiting to go to work. It's really terrible service that you're having us wait and hold on like this and asking us on a telephone to raise our hands. And my property's been and gone, and I wasn't able to even contact you. I've had to call in on a second line now. So it is very unfriendly to us.
Okay, I'm sorry that you missed the announcements in the beginning, but we did announce for the callers how they could unmute and raise their hand and so on.
Well,
but yes,
the reason it was missed because my husband started off with this, and then he had to go off to work. So now I'm having to take over. It was supposed to be at 10, and now an hour and a half later, we're still here listening to all the rigmarole of what's going on with the trees.
Excuse me, ma'am.
My property came and went, and I would like to comment on it.
Okay, the hearing officer will give you a chance to speak again, and if you do not have time to wait, you are more than welcome to issue your statements by writing. So please just wait for the hearing officer.
If there are no other comments for 546, let's go back to 419, 421. And then we can take 1434 15th Street.
Can I double check? We will respond to 546 comment later. I'll let her know. 546號 Madrid 嘅業主，我哋會稍後再回應你頭先嘅發言嘅。
Okay, so now we will hear comments for 419, 421 7th Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, this is not a user-friendly thing for anyone who,
Apologies. Hold on just a moment. I was trying to lower your hand.
I am
Go
on,
ahead.
I am now on a second device so that I can speak. I think I'm the other one, another person who's having this issue as well. Can you put into my address? Because we have issues with the sewer line and the gas line is in front of our house. For not just us, but our neighbor. And we really don't want the gas line messed up. As well as my spouse is disabled. He cannot see. So to ask someone who can't see to clean and take care of a tree, that's gonna be a problem. Are you?
We're hearing you. You have 3 minutes to
Yeah,
make
and then
any
I have
comments you'd like.
I do have another comment. So at the beginning of this, I want it on the record. At the beginning of this, someone read about a 5-minute public comment that was over 3 minutes. So I think that should be retracted from this because it was over 3 minutes. I watched it on my phone. So are you gonna put it onto my address or are we on some other house?
We're making notes of your comments, and at the conclusion of all the addresses, the city representative will address each of the comments that
So
have
what
been
are you
brought up.
doing? What are you gonna do about people who are disabled? Seriously, what are you gonna do for my spouse who's blind? He's blind and hearing impaired and has cerebral palsy. We cannot take care of a tree. We cannot rake leaves. I'm also deathly allergic to certain trees, so I would need an accommodation as well so that I don't get something like a fir tree outside my house and I'm sick every day. Is that being taken into consideration? I'm
All
also
of your comments will be taken into consideration.
I'm also, as well as the 6th Avenue person, I don't want someone falling. And I mean, we've already had the one at 443 7th Avenue. I've seen 3 people trip in that little area. Across the street, that tree's dead. It's been, what, 6 months? Also, I also want to say for the record, this was started in March. It is now December. Why is this taking so long?
Ma'am, you have 30 seconds to
Are we gonna
finish your
get
statement.
any answers today, or do I have to
No,
like?
no answers today.
So
Just
who do
your
we follow up
statement.
with? Do I have to follow up with Connie Chan? Do I have to follow up with the mayor? Like, what do I need to do? Because I've already taken over an hour away from work.
So
Are
I'm
you
a federal employee too. I'm a city, I'm a government employee as well. So I need to know what the follow-up is and what I need to do. Also, Charisse, I emailed you when I was having issues trying to log in and I have not received an email. So
okay,
you're
ma'am?
clearly not
Because
reading your email.
okay, your time is up.
Okay,
And
I
it
figured
was
you were gonna cut me off.
it was also hard for me to look at emails while conducting this hearing. But thank you for your
That's
statements.
why you have multiple monitors.
The hearing officer will hear all of the statements from today, and he will make his recommendations to the director. Then the director will make the final decisions, and we will issue them to you all through email. If you at that time do not agree with the decisions, you will be able to write us, or you could write us now with your written statements as well. Thank you.
thank you for that. Now we'll move on to 1434 15th Street.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes, we can
we
hear
hear.
you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we own a commercial building on 1434 15th Street. And just a couple of weeks ago, we've had a lot of problems with this in the past, but the city sewer line blocked and was backing up into our building. When they came out and cleared it, they did find some tree roots in there. And that was from a tree that is planted further away from the tree that is now outside our building. So firstly, I want to know how far away from the sewer line is the tree planted? And already there's tree roots going in there. And this is an area that's had a lot of flooding in the past and backing up of city sewer lines. So that is one issue. The other issue is the neighborhood that it's in. The tree basin is basically being treated as a dumping ground of rubbish, IV needles, feces, urine bottles thrown in there. And I think it's a health hazard and it's not being maintained, and it's not fair to put that on the property owners to keep those basins clean. So those are my two issues. And are you able to tell me how far away from the sewer line our tree is planted? Is that information you have?
You can continue with your statement and they can answer you afterwards.
Okay, well, that's the two issues is and I've also sent in photos of several tree basins just around a block from my house, and it's just terrible the way the rubbish that's in them, needles, and they're just not being maintained. And it seems that if the city's not able to maintain the basin, then they shouldn't be putting a tree there, because it really is a health hazard for people in the neighborhood. And we're not prepared to keep coming out and having to be calling 311 or even try to clear up the mess that is being put into there. That shouldn't be on us. So that is basically my statement with the concerns about the tree. And it's already planted, even though they were aware that we were asking for a hearing. So that just seems like it would have been nice to hold off digging up the concrete and planting the tree before we had the hearing. But anyway, I would still like the tree removed and the area concreted back over. That's my statement anyway. And
30 seconds.
Are you able to? Yeah, are you able? I'm done with my statement, but I'm asking you, how far is that sewer line from our tree?
Mr. Buck, can
I'm
we
done with my
respond to
statement. I
this
just-
now, or should we wait till the conclusion of the
Well,
remaining
I think
addresses?
there may be a couple of items where we just need to follow up offline with the property owner.
Okay.
But I heard the question for sure about the distance from the sewer line to her tree, and also distance from the neighbor's tree to the sewer line. So I think that I do need to follow up with our inspector, and we'll reach out to her.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll
All
reach
right,
out
then.
to you.
All right then. Fair enough.
Thank you.
I'm done with my statement.
Thank you for that. I think we're on to 8 Maynard. Are there any public comments for the address 8 Maynard Street?
I believe you mean property owner.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Yes. Is the property owner or guest here for 8 Maynard? Please raise your hand. There are no hands at this time.
Next address is 256 Miramar Avenue.
We have a hand. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'd like to state that beginning of this whole call here that there was a statement regarding about how San Francisco should do better to inform San Franciscan about how important it is for the tree planting and the sustainability of the beautify San Francisco, et cetera, which is great, right? But I just want to throw something out back at the urban forestry, just like the gentleman at 674. One is the lack of communication. You guys want to plant a tree in front of my property? Great. But you guys have to inform me. Let me know. You guys don't just come here, just plant it wherever you like. What I did was I called the number that was listed, got information back, basically telling me I have no rights at all. due to the ordinance or the Proposition E that have no rights, that you guys come in and just plant a tree whichever way you want in the right of way of the sidewalk. They have no say in it at all. Fine. Next thing you know, I got an email saying that, oh yeah, that I will be put onto this, I guess, this, apologize here. I'm sorry, that there will be a hearing, that I will be part of the hearing, for the tree planting. Next following week, I said, great. Following week, next thing I know, there's a tree in front of my house. I mean, what's the point of having a hearing if you guys just go ahead and plant a tree in front of my house, not giving me any right to where to plant it, or work with me where to plant it, or what kind of tree to plant in front of my house, which, your website's telling me that, that you guys will work with me on finding the species of the tree, location, etc. But no, none of that ever happened. You guys just came, planted a tree wherever you guys like on the property or on a sidewalk, and that's why I'm here today. That's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not against having a tree in front of my house. It's the way you guys approached it. So, and I guess one other comment is that where you guys place the tree right now on 256 Miramar, you guys don't leave any space at all for someone who park on the street to open their door, versus the picture you have right here. You have looks like a 3-foot clearance for someone to open the door. In front of my house, there's no way that someone could open the door where you guys planted a tree. So I don't understand how you guys can pick the location, and all these other locations here, you have some space for people to open their door. That's pretty much about it. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments for 256 Miramar?
No comments for that. The next address, please.
129 Ray Street.
(129) Ray Street. If you are the property owner, can you please raise your hand? Or tenant or someone at that address? There are no hands. Mr. Jasmine, the next address.
Sorry, I was muted. 48 Shotwell, my apologies.
Go ahead, you can speak, caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Merrick, and my partner David Pang and I both own 4850 Shotwell. It would be great if you could put it on the screen, and I'll tell you why. We have a number of concerns in our neighborhood that, I'm sorry, I'll mute this. Gosh, everything happens at once. We have a number of issues in our block that no one else has, because we're in the toilet, so to speak. Everything goes downhill. And we are between 14th and 15th, South Van Ness and Folsom. This is my property, and across the street from Foodco. What is not shown in any of these pictures is the 3 transformers that are on our utility pole right above this picture. It cuts short, but if there is our pole there has been burned on numerous occasions. You can see across the street, that one also has been burned. We have, unfortunately, the unhoused and encampments in our street. And like 15th Street, we have a issue with having it be clean and hygienic, because everybody throws everything into these boxes. We've had our neighbor put in plant boxes, they sleep in them, they do all kinds of crazy things, but nothing lives in the box. They keep being removed. Across the street in Food Co, they cleaned up all vegetation and cemented over it. Because we have a rat abatement process going on, we have a river of rats that runs over literally where you're looking at right now, right next to, between the red car and the black car, literally a river of rats that we have all documented and exterminated over 1,500 rats in the last 5 years. And we have documentation to coincide with these records. They're attracted by Food Co. They're throwing trash and overfilling garbage cans because we have Section 8 next door to us. And my concern is threefold. One, the fire hazard of the 3 electrical transformers that have almost caught on fire. Literally, the poles have caught on fire, but they didn't reach the transformers. As the police and the fire engine came around the corner, we have had numerous fires due to these transformers, and these transformers will explode with the oil inside for 20 feet radius. And where you're wanting to plant this tree is within that range, as well as our neighbors.
Ma'am. Okay,
We're very concerned about the
that
fire
is,
hazard in our neighborhood and the rats and the encampments. It's also taking,
thank you, Miss Merrick. That has been your 3 minutes time limit.
okay, so may I submit all these records all over again? Because the transformers are not shown.
Yes, you may submit written comments as well to Urban Forestry at sfdpw.org, and I will put that in the chat as well.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I had a person coming this morning. I postponed them because I thought we would be done by now. So I apologize for the phone.
That's okay. Thank you.
And I'm sorry to have to bring up these concerns, but I think that more needs to be utilized. I love trees. I have over 21 trees, one for every year we've been together. So in planter boxes around
Thank you.
my property.
Thank you for your comments. Now this item is open for any public comment if you have not had a chance to speak so far.
Mr. Jasmine, I do see a hand for the person that needed the translation. May I unmute them?
Oh, of course, yes.
Can you tell them they can?
請問546號 Madrid 街嘅業主，你有咩嘢想發問？
聽唔聽到啊？
係聽到。
係啊，因為我哋真係你哋講話10點鐘開始，已經係2個鐘，我哋係咪可以走啦？可以翻工啦？還是同埋我最想最想補充嘅就係各方面個保障啦，因為你啲樹根其隔離嗰2個樹根已經係嗰個樹係好大㗎啦，係已經係破壞咗我哋嚟左右都水泥㗎啦。
我幫你翻譯先。She's wondering since the meeting has been going on for almost 2 hours, is it okay for her to leave?
Well, we're gonna be issuing some general comments at the end. If she wants to stick around for those, that might be useful. Otherwise, we'll take her comments under consideration and make recommendations.
我哋一陣間仲有一個公眾發言嘅，同埋我哋都就嚟搞掂㗎啦。咁但係如果你你頭先所發言嘅所有嘢，我哋係會之後再回覆翻你嘅。咁所以如果你而家真係要走嘅話，你係可以走嘅。
OK， 好，唔該晒。
If there are no other public comments for folks who have not had a chance to speak, then I'd ask
You mean
our
property owners?
property owners.
We
Thank
haven't
you.
gotten to the public yet.
Well, I did open it up for public comment if
Oh,
folks
okay.
have not had a chance to speak.
Okay, we
So
do
if-
have a hand.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Yes, good afternoon. So this has lasted now for 2 hours. My statements is that this is an interesting hearing, finding out that these are trees that are being planted all over the city. And also each property has its own issues, what's going on with the street and the sidewalks and the different things that are around the basins of these where the trees being planted. I wasn't aware that, and this is my concern, that it's not just happening with these property owners, but also other parts of the city where FUF and BUF are going around and opening up new plots, but not utilizing the empty plots in the neighborhoods versus opening up new plots just for whatever reason. I've noticed this happening currently in the last 2 or 3 years. So apparently this is a new policy that you have. And then I'm not clear about, again, since you're doing the partnership with FUF, that FUF is going out to just go ahead and put them in. I understand, I do remember in 2005, the mayor just said, well, plant the trees. So well, the city does have eminent domain and to plant the trees where they want. So I remember that happening in 2005 with putting in over 50 trees into a neighborhood. So therefore, the city does have the ability to plant a tree where it wants. And I think this should be interpreted to everybody else. And I experienced it myself, where the city said, this is the location, it's going in, and that's it. So I wasn't aware that is now going forward as a policy. So that the citywide, we're now to put in more street trees where street trees were not there before, to maximize the plots that are not been used before. So I appreciate this hearing. I appreciate that the comments of the property owners and the uniqueness of each property, the issues that they have to deal with the trees. But then you have to understand that this is a policy of the city of trying to meet its obligation of putting in more street trees, and this is how they're doing it. And unfortunately, your in front of your property is one of the
30 seconds.
trees has gone in. So I appreciate the property owners taking the time today to state what their issues are with the property, and I appreciate them being taking some consideration that this is helping the health of the city and also growing our canopy that we're losing because of the drought and other things that have happened in the city over the year. So thank you very much for your time today, and I appreciate that you were able to come to this hearing today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other hands for public comment?
I see hands being risen that have already had the opportunity to speak, and we ask that you would submit any further testimony that you have to us in writing. If you have already spoken, you will not be able to speak once again. Thank you.
I ask Chris Buck now to address the specific comments that were raised for each property.
Thanks, Chris Buck with Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry. So we typically don't provide rebuttal, but we do try to answer specific questions that have come up along the way, that are prompted from the hearing officer. And so in that light, I think this is a little bit more like that is, at a public works hearing, there might be some questions and follow-up. So I'd want the public to view it not as rebuttal, without allowing a property owner to rebuttal back and respond to what I'm saying, but more we're just, the information is public information. The more the better. One thing I will say is that I think there's a handful of a few sites here where we can follow up individually to be a little bit more tailored and specific to each property owner. So that's something I'm going to have our staff do. I think overall, there were a lot of questions around liability for maintaining the trees, and to confirm when Prop E passed in 2016, it assigned the responsibility to the city. And so the city is responsible for the major maintenance of trees, and that includes pruning or removal of a tree when necessary, and also repairing the sidewalk. We do have information about street tree maintenance on our website at www.sfpublicworks.org under services. And so there's information about that. One other thing I heard in general was kind of we have tree maintenance of canopies, pruning trees away from buildings and clearances over the sidewalk. But we also have maintenance related to tree roots, and those are different schedules. The turnaround time for sidewalk repair does tend to be much longer than tree pruning because of the nature of that work. In most cases, we're already well aware of where we need to make repairs citywide, and we don't want the public to feel that they need to be a squeaky wheel to get anything done. It's done systematically and strategically. For our interpreter, should I pause there for a sec? I think I don't have much more than that, but perhaps you could cover some of that.
咁好快咁樣講一下先啦，就係咧，三藩市市府亦都係公務局啦，係會負責維修由人行道上邊嘅樹根造成嘅人行道破壞嘅，呢個係市府將會承擔維修嘅責任。咁喺會後咧，其實我哋亦都會有員工同埋職員聯絡你，根據你具體嘅情況再同你進行溝通。唔該晒。
Thank you. And just to conclude, I do want to remind everyone that prior to July 1st, 2017, 2/3 of property owners were responsible for maintaining the trees on behalf of the public. And now that responsibility is with the city. Before, a property owner had to pay to prune a tree. They were liable for sidewalk damage, repairing the sidewalk. And then when if they were trying to remove a healthy tree, we would deny the request to remove a healthy tree. These responsibilities have been removed from the property owner. That said, we understand there's something called minor maintenance, which can feel very major, which is things like leaves, garbage, people who don't pick up after their dogs or after themselves. These can be challenges, but we also need to be equitable. And so if we have a lot of people with trees already, we have 125,000 trees, we want to plant at least 20,000 more, if not 25,000 more. We need equity. And so we've had people living and managing with trees in the public right of way adjacent to their homes for decades. And we're trying to make that more equitable. With that, there are a couple of additional locations who asked a specific question that's more appropriate for us to reach out to one-on-one. And so we'll do that with several property owners.
Thank you for that, Mr. Buck. If there are no other comments, I think I think that is the final comment for this item. So we'll close the item and I will make my recommendations to the director. Now we have an opportunity for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Again, if you've spoken already, then You will not be allowed to speak again. This is a way for us to conclude any items that haven't been addressed so far in this hearing. Clerk Waiters, are there any other comments not
No,
related?
there are
Okay.
no other hands at this time.
That said, the hearing is now closed.
Thank you.